All right, good evening and welcome to the Capital Planning Committee meeting for Thursday, July 8th, 2021. It is 7:30 p.m. Pursuant to Senate Bill number 2475, which was signed into law by Governor Baker on June 16th, 2021. This meeting is the Capital Planning Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we'll post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. We do not have minutes from last night, and I'll just note that all members are present. So I think we'll just roll right into a discussion on what we heard last night. Before we go into what I'll call a deliberation of, what recommendations we want to put forward, I figured I'd pause and just get feedback on the process and whether anyone had any comments on kind of how it went just overall last night, knowing that this probably isn't the last time we're going to run a similar process for something. So just while it's fresh in everyone's mind. So just kind of open floor if anyone has anything they want to add.
I thought it went pretty smooth. I thought the questions were good and we had a pretty good cadence. So thought it good.
I would have actually said it was fortuitous the way that the questions rolled out, because I thought each person asked a slightly different angle that got something different, which was, I don't know if that was just lucky or whether we're all just that good that to have a little different view of the matter.
I appreciated the process as well. I thought the questions were good. I thought very similar to what you said, Joe, that the way they rolled and the responses, the different responses that we got. The board had done a similar process to this. So I thought this went really well.
Yeah, I thought the amount of time that we gave to each was pretty good as well. It worked out in each case that we were pretty much through the questions in the 30 minutes. I mean, maybe we could have done 5 minutes shorter, maybe 5 minutes longer, but overall, I thought it went really well from that respect.
Any other feedback that anyone wants to add?
Mark, any feedback? I mean, you've probably done more of these than any of us. Just I was curious, how you thought it went.
No, I thought it went well. I think that Jason probably watched some of the selectmen proceedings for the legal interviews because it was the structure and keeping people on time was very important, and it made people focus a little bit on their answers, didn't let people ramble. And like I said, it's very illustrative. Somebody looks great on paper and then you meet them in person and it just doesn't meet what's on the paper. So I think the process is always very helpful. And it was more so last night with the group that you had.
Full disclosure, I don't think I watched a minute of the legal counsel interviews. So
then I think you were getting coached in the background.
Okay. So with that, I'm not going to share my, I'm planning to go last, chair's prerogative. But I will, I'm just going to open with just some reminders. Remember, this was a design select under the designer guidelines. So whoever we do decide to recommend, and assuming the contract gets finalized, that person, firm, etc., would have the ability to continue into successor agreements without us going back out to an RFQ. Again, it doesn't mean we can't at any point in time, depending upon where this journey takes us, go back out. But the way it was designed and written, in accordance with Mass General laws, that option is available. I also wanted to remind the committee, and I believe I said this when we were starting to design the RFQ, while we are making a recommendation and ultimately the Board of Selectmen will buy in or not buy in, we will have a vendor and they will have to conduct themselves with many department heads that we have in town. And I think this committee has had the chance, whether it's on this committee or in other committees, to interact with department heads. And human nature is every department head is different. They all have their own different needs. Some report to boards and committees and commissions. Some are through an elective process. Some are through an appointed process. But I think the one thing I would just ask everyone to keep in mind as they try to frame their answers is think about the end user here, right? Is the department heads are going to have to work collaboratively with whoever we select. And, knowing the diverse nature of the folks that we do have on our team, which is great, we need to be able to bring forward a team that we think is best going to match the broad majority of the users of this potential study, but also help us craft, a plan that would ultimately could be presented to the residents in a way that leads to, a true vision for the town, as opposed to, checking a box that we did a study. I'm not a firm believer in studies that go on a shelf. I'm a firm believer in studies that actually get used for something. And that's obviously my intent here. So I just want that's at least my view of kind of how I'm going to frame my decision-making process as an individual. But I think it's, more speaking, on behalf of certain department heads that have reached out as they watched us go through the initial process, in having seen kind of even a process with the public safety building where we really only had 2 departments impacted per se, but it basically took every board and committee and commission in town to bring that project to fruition. And that's the level of interaction that the design team and the OPM on that particular project had. And I would expect the same would hold true for wherever we go with this. So that's just kind of my opening of at least where I'm at in my head in terms of, vision of this process. But I don't have a preconceived order. If anyone wants to go first, great. Otherwise, I will certainly make my order and we'll just round the horn, just kind of offer your thoughts and go from there. Anyone want to go first? Go ahead, Lisa.
All right, I'll jump right in. So I want to say I think everyone did a really good job last night from the 4 firms that came in. I actually kind of had a 1 and 2 in my mind last night, and then I actually went back and went through my notes again today, and I actually kind of changed a little bit from where I was at. For me, again, I thought they were all great, but there were things that stood out from the 3rd firm, which was Drumney. They became one of my top 2, and again, that's not specifically in the order of the top 2. I thought that they were very knowledgeable. They were very prepared. I appreciated that the presentation actually tied in with some of the questions that we asked. One of the things I got an extra point for was one of the directions you had given at the beginning, Jason, was you would ask when they came into the room that they put their firm name after, and there was one person that did from that. So they got an extra point in my book for that. I thought that Courtney, who would potentially be the project manager, I liked how she came across. I think she would be a very good fit. And again, this isn't in 1 or 2 order, it's just how they came up. My other 1 and 2 was the last firm, Schwartz. And I was pleasantly surprised because they weren't there on my list when we started. Again, they had a member that did as was requested and put the name of the company afterwards, so they get an extra point for that. I liked how with this firm, it was a lot of thinking outside the box, and it wasn't just the canned approach. I really appreciated that. I thought they were very, very prepared. Also, I liked the team effort, and I liked that each individual had the ability to speak. We just weren't hearing from the principal. We were able to hear from the project manager and who else is on the team. So those are my 1 and 2. If it comes down to it, I'm happy to share which one inched ahead of the other one. I just want to also thank Jeff for kind of pushing for Schwartz to come in, because I was really impressed with everything they said, the presentation that they gave, and I liked how they thought. So I will leave it at that. And if it comes down to actually saying, based on everybody else, which 1 and 2 is, then happy to do that.
And maybe before I go to the next person, I probably should have said this at the beginning, but my intention is that we have 2 motions at the end of this. Is one is who our recommendation is, and then 2, if we have a number 2, that we have a runner-up to the extent that contract negotiations fall through, so that we don't have to restart the process, that we kind of solidify where we're at. And if for whatever reason something comes up during the negotiations with firm number 1, that we kind of pivot right to firm number 2 without, kind of missing a beat. Mark, does that all sound consistent with prior procurement processes?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to just keep the process moving forward, Jason.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to go next?
Next.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So I guess maybe narrow it down to 2 as well, similar to like Lisa had just said. One of them was Drummy. My biggest concern coming into this, reading their RFQ, was if they had the capacity to do the work. That was the one thing I wasn't certain of, but from talking to them last night, it was clear to me that they do have the capacity and be able to take this work on. So that was, a huge plus in my mind for evaluating them. I also, like Lisa said, thought they had a ton of expertise in the areas that we're looking to achieve. I thought that, I thought Ken had a lot of good answers to every question we asked, and Courtney as well would be someone I thought that we could work well with across all the departments. Their presentation had a lot of good questions on there. When we asked them what questions we should be asking, their presentation had quite a few of them on there. They seem very knowledgeable about some of the history in the town and some of the buildings that we're looking to evaluate. So they clearly did their homework in that respect. And then from a 2, like in no particular order, I'm kind of on the fence between Schwartz and Weston. I liked some of the main people that were talking from Weston Sampson, but it wasn't everyone that was talking in that conversation. I thought that their personalities would work well with us, and they have some good experience thinking outside of the box with the impact of COVID and what that has on the workforce, or what that would have on the departments and the people that would be coming back to the office on a full-time or some type of hybrid basis. And then Schwartz, to Lisa's point, I also like the challenges that they brought up, and the programming point of view, I guess, that they kept on bringing up, and how they think about the projects they work with, and they like a clean slate, and really try to evaluate what the actual problem is, and rather than taking some type of preconceived bias, as they put it. So yeah, those were kind of the 3 that I thought were the top in my mind. Maybe I tipped my hat a little bit, but yeah. Okay.
Joe or Andrew?
Or I'll go ahead. So I mean, I'm probably in the similar boat to Jeff. I mean, I think I had a clear favorite. I think I like the array the best. I think they were, they obviously had the experience. I was concerned too they wouldn't have the bandwidth, but it sounds like they do. They did their homework, which I appreciated. I mean, I had the question on, if you had read the RFQ or other things, what questions did you have? And that they knew that the building was for sale, and they did they did their homework. They drove by some stuff. So I really liked that they were prepared for that question. I think some of the other companies, when they answered, kind of gave generic answers and didn't quite have a response that was solidified like theirs. I would say my 2 and 3 is going to be around Weston and Sampson and Schwartz and Silver. I probably would give the edge to Weston and Sampson. I did like Schwartz and Silver a lot on their approach from the programming and looking at things from a different angle. And if it was in my private sector job, that probably would give them an edge. And I'm just not sure that for this town, that would be, I'm not sure if that's a benefit or it would be a hindrance. It's just sometimes with town departments, it's going to be very hard to take people out of their kind of comfort zone and look at something completely different and alternative. And while it's good, is it going to add more complexity to that? But I thought DRA had the strongest. I mean, I thought they had the strongest RFQ response. I think they had the longest, best experience, and I do like that they have a lot of experience with MSBA and some of the other programs in the library, whatever the renovation program, and they understand some of the impacts of that, how that all works. So it's kind of a more well-rounded experience.
Joe? You're on mute. You flipped yourself.
Sorry. I fall a little bit in the same camp with a bunch of my comrades here. My clear 1 and 2 were DRA and Weston. I did appreciate it what people are saying about Schwartz, but my problem with that is, and I'll give an analogy. We were in grad school, we were given a project about a factory floor. And they said, this is the problem. This is the inefficiencies. And the idea was to get the student to rearrange everything so that it was actually perfect rather than trying to modify the current system. And when you're thinking out of the box and you're looking at a system, you tend to say, well, it's a little bit out of whack, so we'll just make it the way it should be. And given the way that the town is right now, that's not the type of thinking solution that I think that we can really embrace fully. Not that it's not the right thinking, because it is, but I'm not sure we can really embrace a full creative solution to some of the issues that we're talking about. Whereas DRA, although I'm not in love with some of the system models they use, you can tell that they've very much thought out a systematic way in which they evaluate all the space. From the charts and the graphs, and even the way that they have their the Venn diagrams for interacting with client interactions and the issues that needed to be addressed. Weston Sampson, I found that I disagree with, I think it was you, Lisa, or no, somebody brought up that they didn't think that they utilized all the people that they brought into the meeting. And I actually thought that they actually did make an effort, especially at the end, to involve the engineer. I thought they specifically went out of their way to make sure that everybody that was there at the meeting actually talked, which I liked a bit, and I think brought a little bit more to the table, especially moving forward. I'm not sure they're as strong as DRA in terms of doing the evaluation that we're asking in the RFQ, but moving forward, I think that they're a stronger partner for the town, because DRA also brought up that they will bring in other people to do a lot of the assessing for them in town on terms of the properties and the buildings. Which means that they do have the capacity, but it's not necessarily a capacity in-house, which means they're going to be farming out a certain amount, probably a certain amount more of that work. Whereas I think Weston Sampson, with all the engineers and the rest of the surveying that they normally do for a lot of their public projects, may have at least closer ties to their partners, or potentially in-house people that do a lot of that same work, which would have been interesting to find out. Which is why I preferred Weston, as opposed to going maybe with an out-of-the-box thinking firm like Schwartz.
Okay. So no one has touched on TBA, I think, at all. So I just wanted to address them first, because I think Lisa, you said it though, obviously we were lucky to have 4 respondents that we felt very comfortable bringing in for an interview. And I think we would be well served by any of the 4. But the question is, what's the outcome, right? We will get something, we'll hopefully get our money's worth. But I think, just because we do have a responsibility, I think, to provide feedback to these firms, and we should do it in a public forum. I thought that the telltale sign for me was they were my clear favorite based on the written documentation. But then when meeting the team, and especially given the emphasis that I put on the first question that we asked about the day-to-day contact, they clearly fell short in that area. And it doesn't matter how large or small your firm is, life happens, right? And I think if the last year hasn't told us anything, I don't know what will, but we can't rely on one person in particular to steer the ship, right? And we're going to need whoever we hire, we're going to need, need to have access to resources, whether it's on their own payroll or it's an independent contractor that they've relied on for 20 or 30 years. I mean, I think that's a separate debate, but I just think that they did not bring that to the table. And that was why I would not consider them amongst, the remaining four. Does anyone disagree with that statement? I mean, just no one, okay. So I thought a lot about it. And I liked how Schwartz Silver was thinking outside the box. But I also agree with the comment of, we also know this town. And I think, Andrew, you probably said it best, right? If I was hiring someone in my private sector responsibilities, that might be something I'd be looking for. If you remember, was not really in favor of even bringing them in because they steered towards federal buildings and fire stations. Well, I think we have a pretty good fire station. So, Wellesley obviously was a comparable example that was presented, but the more I thought about it, I just thought it might be a little much for what we're looking to approach now, and tackle as a community. With Drummy, really echo what's been already said, but I think to me it was the team that was brought forward there, and not necessarily the principal, in full candor, but it was, that slide that they brought up when I asked. They had about 10 minutes, if you all remember, left in the presentation. I got to whatever question, my last question 7, where they had questions for us, right? And I think it says something when you actually prepare and get to know your client. And if anyone does a Google search of what the Southborough Capital Planning Committee had been up to for the past 16 months or so, which we've all been an integral part of, there's countless articles out there that you will find, right? We all know that there's one primary source, but a simple Google search would find that. And they were on to basically every single major hot button issue that we tackled, right? It maybe hadn't gotten to the affordable housing piece on South Union yet, but that really says a lot to me. And especially if that's really driven by our day-to-day contact, as opposed to, someone that may have more experience, but is really going to kind of just be guiding, but not interacting as much with our team. That carried a lot of weight. Whether they would proceed to another phase, I think I have an open mind on that, regardless of who we hire. But I think the more I thought about it, they kind of rose to, I'll call it the middle of the ground for me, of not being, too outside of the box thinking, because we know there's options. We don't have preconceived notion of where we're going, but we know what kind of options we're dealing with. But at the same time, could sit there with our department heads and really challenge them in a professional manner to bring things forward. I thought the Weston team was incredibly well qualified, but I don't think it lines up with what we're looking for here. And I thought they completely missed the mark on the question about comparable experience when they used a DPW facility that candidly is a landfill. It's a facility at a landfill. And it just, when you're talking about the magnitude of that project compared to what we may be looking at coming out of the space needs, given how many other projects they had, right? Just the largest firm, from what I could tell of firms we were dealing with, that just really struck me. And I think I also looked at the composition of the teams that were brought forward, and to say, I think they have a lot of great expertise, but I didn't think the diversity of the team that was brought forward was also, you know, what I was looking for in terms of different views, et cetera. You know, I think they all are very tenured and experienced, but maybe not in what we're looking for. If we had Karen Galligan sitting here looking to build a new DPW facility, we wouldn't be having a discussion if it were up to me. It would have been Weston and Sampson. So I was leaning towards Drummy. Would definitely also be open to Schwartz, but do have, you know, kind of the concern about, is it maybe too much at this point for what we're looking to do? So those were my views.
It does seem like there's a consensus.
Mark, would you be willing to give any of your views, or would you rather us take care of that?
I think I'd rather have you take care of that. I'm not sure that my views differ all that much from what's been said.
No worries.
So we can do this one of two ways. We can motion for who our number one is, or we could eliminate and work our way towards number one and number two. Yeah, that would be more motions, but
I think we have a clear probably number one, and I think we have a clear number four. We want to try to just knock those two out.
sure. Before I entertain a motion on that, because I don't have a separate public comment section, I will entertain if there's any public comment on that before we actually vote. I am seeing none. So, Andrew, did you want to make a motion?
Should we start with number four?
Yeah, let's start there.
I guess we would be not moving forward with that candidate, right? We're only going to try to move forward with two, or suggest one and have a second.
Yes.
I move that the Southborough Capital Planning Committee mark the TBA company as our fourth choice for the RFQ.
Second.
Any further discussion? Procedurally, Mark, should we mark it as number four, or we should just eliminate it from future consideration?
I think you should it's kind of like death by 1,000 paper cuts. But yeah, I mean, you should, given the conversation, I think you're eliminating it from future consideration.
And thusly amending my motion, say, and thusly eliminating it from future consideration.
Second.
All right. So motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote. Braccio.
Aye.
Hark. I saw your mouth move, but I didn't
Aye.
hear it.
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Pfaff,
Aye.
and Malinowski's aye. I will make the next one because I just think it, just to make sure from a language perspective, I'm going to move that the Southborough Capital Planning Committee recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they award Drummy Roseanne Anderson, Inc., the RFQ, the Southborough Space Needs Study, subject to successful contract negotiation. There a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, I heard Andrew first. Mark, if that motion passes, that give you the language you would need. Obviously, we'll follow it up with a letter to the board, but that give you what you need.
Yeah, that'll give me what we need for the board. If you follow that up with a letter, that'll go in the packet.
Okay. All right, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Braccio,
Aye.
Hark,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Pfaff,
Aye.
and Malinowski's aye. So I don't know if anyone wants to take the lead on the next. I'll help you with the wording, but I don't know that there's a clear 2 versus 3 based on the discussion.
I mean, I have a 2 in my head. Should we just make that motion? If it fails, then we know that the other one is number 2. Right?
Jason, can we just kind of, I don't know, maybe before we make the motion, just kind of go around table. I mean, I think I know where everybody's at, but I mean, my 2 and 3 were close. So again, I don't want to hold up the process. I mean, if clearly I'm in the minority, I don't have a problem.
Yeah,
Changing.
go ahead and
So,
start. Go ahead. You go
So-
first.
my number 2 was Schwartz, and my number 3 was
Weston.
Weston and Sampson. But again, I'm just interested to hear where everybody else falls.
Okay, Jeff.
I am in agreement with Lisa. Weston, in my notes originally, I said they were very experienced, but very heavy experience in public works. And that, to your point, Jason, is well in my notes from last night, that did come out as the prime example that was pointed to, public works more than anything else. So yes, I would say that Schwartz Silver would be my number 2.
Okay, Joe.
I had the reverse. I had Weston and then Schwartz. I also went back and looked at John Camo's resume. And, you know, he worked at Brown beforehand, which gave him a lot more experience in facilities than or at least I'm guessing. That's probably may not be a good guess, but worked with a lot of facility type buildings and structures. So, and I think that that's part of what we're doing. So I think that they're in a better position than we think just with, you know, the public works buildings, but I am not. I would agree with people that I did understand why people are choosing Schwartz second over Weston. That's not a mystery to me as to why. It just happens that my choice is Weston, then Schwartz.
Andrew.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I mean, it's close. I would give the edge to Weston and Sampson. Again, if it was personal job or company, I'd put Schwartz above Weston Sampson, maybe Schwartz above DRA, but we're not looking for that. But I'd give Weston and Sampson the edge over Schwartz and Silver.
And I'm with Lisa and Jeff. I had Schwartz above Weston because of what I already mentioned during my comment. So we took a vote based on that. I think we know where it would come out. But my question really is for Joe and Andrew. This may be a moot point for all of us, right? But the question is, would you be comfortable? Let's just say there was a 3-2 vote. Would you be comfortable if something happened with Drummy, contract negotiations fall through, and we're sitting at the table with Schwartz? Would you be comfortable with that or no?
I think I would be comfortable. I think if we did that, I have them so close that maybe it would be a pricing. Maybe like have a pricing discussion, but between the two of them, but that would be the only thing. I mean, that's one thing we're missing, right? It's obviously cost, but
yeah, but they've been given parameters they're going to have to work within.
I mean, 45 days, but you know, they could throw how many experts at it, and obviously that would change the cost.
No, but the RFQ clearly states that we have we will not be approving anything greater than $20,000.
Okay.
Because that's the only amount of money that's actually appropriated to do it. I'll just share historically what I saw through design process on the public safety building. The initial contracts have got to be an investment. I've never seen the raw economics behind it. The goal, right, of any of these firms is right to assist us in guiding to a project, right? Hopefully the right project for the community that actually gets the support of the community. The money is in the actual design part of it, in the execution of construction administration. From what I can tell, based on the number of commas that were in checks at the beginning of the public safety building and the end to our design firm at that point in time.
Yeah, makes sense.
I don't know, Mark, I'll let you react to that from a procurement perspective, based on what you've seen.
So just repeating on what you're looking for, Jason?
Andrew kind of said, because of where he was, he's so close, right, between 2 and 3. You know, if we got to that point, he's kind of Andrew, don't, let me, correct me if I misstate this, but you were basically saying, well, kind of want to see the price.
Yeah, I mean, if we know it's all under 20, I honestly missed that part, but so I don't really worry too much about that.
Okay.
The only part there is now that you mentioned the next phase, I might be leaning more towards Weston and Sampson with more experience doing some of the municipalities on terms of construction wise, but they both do similar work.
I mean, I don't want to blow up the ranking process here, but you have picked your preferred vendor that you're going to recommend to the Board of Selectmen. I've been doing this a long time, and I would have to think very hard as to a negotiation that was not successful with the preferred vendor. Very rarely do they fall apart. In fact, there's only one that I could actually, now that I'm thinking about it, one I could think of, in my career that actually I had to go to a second choice. So you've taken one completely off the table. You have a preferred vendor, and then you have, a 2 and a 3. The committee is not adverse to meeting, so you can leave that on the table right now, and you can move forward with Drummy. And then if we see that not going the way that we expect it to, can always come back to the committee and say, look, we really are going to need, we're going to need a backup in case this doesn't go as we expect it to.
It's almost like you read my mind. I was going to ask if we could just go that way.
Yeah, there's nothing that says you can leave the mystery between 2 and 3. If you want to, it may not matter, and hopefully it's not going to.
Yeah. I like that approach as long as everyone else does.
Yep.
Okay. And Mark, you would have whatever you need for Lori to at least provide an update to all 4 firms pending the Board of Selectmen discussion on Tuesday night. Basically, you would tell TBA, basically give them the same letter we've already given the other firm.
Mhm.
And then Schwartz, Silver, and Weston would get a letter saying they weren't the finalists, but we may be back in touch. And, Drummy would get the let's set up a meeting sort of discussion. Is that just to be clear on what would happen?
Yeah, I think that's fair, at least to update people on where the committee's at. This is the decision of the committee. Selectmen are meeting on Tuesday, and should the recommendation prevail, then we'll move forward with negotiations as soon as possible next week with Drummy. If we are unsuccessful in reaching agreement on a contract, then the capital committee will reconsider the 2 remaining firms.
And Jason,
Everyone-
I don't think, if I could just add, I don't think it's going to be a surprise to Schwartz. They're actually 2 members are in the audience. So
Yeah,
mean-
no, I see that. And, to those of you that are listening, obviously greatly appreciate your interest in the process. It's certainly not lost on me, how interested you were in this work. Okay, so I think we have a path forward on that. So then pending BOS vote on Tuesday night, there would be a contract that needs to be negotiated. Mark clearly needs to be part of that. I assume, Mark, you want a friend to accompany you?
Yeah, friend's always good. So you guys can pick the friend. I'm not going to do that. So,
Does anyone have any thoughts?
What exactly does that mean from our perspective, though?
well, so, what we'll probably do is, we have new town council. We have new contract documents. And when it comes to contracts, I always like to work from ours rather than having the vendor give you theirs and you try to make changes to their document. I'd rather have them make changes to the town's document because they're the documents that council is most comfortable with. So I think we need to, I think the biggest issue is just kind of talking about price, less language, that's really, I think where, the friend is helpful.
I think it's scope and deliverables is at least what I had in my head.
Okay.
Right, in terms of, I think when we crafted the language with Lori, we left it broad enough of what we were looking to get out of the first phase. But if you kind of just, all four firms, I think, addressed this last night, right, is that they do want to have further discussions of, getting some more details, right? And I think that would be part of that discussion too, of just laying the groundwork of, this is where we're at with the school discussion. This is where we're at with South Union, right? So they can help frame their scope and say, I need to talk to, John Parent tomorrow, as the facilities director, but I can talk to XYZ department head in 3 weeks. It's because they have 3 employees, and that's not as going to be a critical path item for me. I think it's going to be part of that too, right? And then ultimately my intent would be, even though we don't award a contract, bring that, at least the scope language, back to make sure everyone knows what we're going to see at the end of the firm's work, right? And that there's no surprises of, one person thinking we were going to have, a design bid set to go out and build a new building, another person thinking we were going to have, floor plans, and another person, thinking we were going to have a memo, right? Very dramatic example. We're obviously not going to have a design bid set, but just trying to make sure there's key alignment around that.
I mean, I would say, Jason, that's, if you are interested in it, I think you'd be the natural person for that. But I understand you're in Nantucket. What's up? Whatever. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm happy to do it. I think we're in a virtual world right now. And I'll be back very soon. So
Okay.
it wouldn't preclude me meeting with Mark and whoever live, if that's the route we chose to go next week or the week after. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. So, Mark, I guess I'm your friend on this one. And then I think that wraps up this process. All right. So I will report back once we hear from BOS on Tuesday night and chart the path from there. I have one item under other business. I received an email yesterday from Mr. Parent. They've gone out to RFQ for the OPM on the townhouse project that was approved at town meeting. And he asked me to join him and Ms. Esposito to score the OPM packets. They received 5 responses to it, and had a discussion with him, had a discussion with Mark, and where we landed was a slightly different approach. I didn't feel comfortable as just one representative of committee, with 2 town employees scoring, because I thought what just happened with this process worked really well, and candidly, that contract may end up being more than the contract that we just discussed at length here today and last night, and obviously leading up to this. So the approach we landed on is Lori and John will do the initial scoring. No one from Capital will be involved, but to have a public and transparent process of who gets selected as the OPM for that project, that we would use a capital planning meeting and the capital planning members to make a recommendation on that particular piece. So we would get copies of, I'll call it the finalists. So we're not going to be doing every step we just did. It's kind of a different approach, but I think also is a really good test of, the process we've been talking about in terms of the collaboration, I think is our word, right, Lisa, that we're using with department heads. John was clearly looking for help, but I think there are some things that we should task an individual member with, and that one was not one. I thought that this was one that we are better and more, a stronger voice is 5, because we can just see how the discussion went tonight. We all clearly kind of leaned one way, but even if you kind of look at the 2 versus 3 discussion, I think there are very good arguments on both sides, right? So I think that sort of diversity in thinking is really important as we hire vendors that, will serve the town. So is everyone open to that? The good news is it won't be next week. It would be sometime in August. And I don't know how many it will be.
Yeah, Jason, the one request I would make, this is obviously, going to be somebody that John is going to have to work with very intimately over the course of the next couple of years. So, I would ask that he be part of the interview process and part of the deliberation process as well. Again, it's kind of like when the selectmen picked council. They make the selection of council, but I've got to work with this person. So hopefully that relationship exists. And, fortunately the board's decision, gave me somebody that, I'm very comfortable working with. I want to make sure John's got that same comfort level so that he can be involved in the process, in the interview and the decision process with the committee.
I think, yeah, that goes without saying. But yes, I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you.
So with that, I will be in touch on a next meeting date. We have kind of our regular duties we're gonna have to get back to. But I'll be in touch once I kind of see how that's playing out from a scheduling perspective and try to solicit feedback. Does Monday nights generally still work for everyone? I know we aren't Monday this week, obviously due to the holiday, but that seemed to have been the collective preference in the past.
Yeah, it depends on the week, I guess, in August. We've got a couple weeks of being away, but that's fine.
Okay.
Is that our new
All right.
member?
Yeah.
Our sixth voting member?
Yeah. All right. Any other business tonight?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Second,
All right. Second by Lisa. Roll call vote. Braccio,
Aye.
Hark,
aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Pfaff,